All right, here we go. In three, two, one. Welcome to Left Coast Live. It is Wednesday, October 2nd. I am your host, Dieter McBusiness, joined as always by my co-host, Stat Pat, Stateless Patriot. We are California lefties coming at you with some hot takes about the vice presidential debate we witnessed last night, as well as all the other major news stories of the past week. But before we get into all that, Stat Pat, how have you been? What is since the last time we were on, what have your feelings been doing? Because they've been trending in one direction for me, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Right now, I want it to be about you. So what do you think before the debate, after the debate? Did the debate even matter? What do you were you even thinking about that? Is there other stuff going on like this hurricane that might be even more of a factor?
Yeah, we're definitely going to touch on that a little bit. I think we're not really prepared for the economic ramifications of the impact of Hurricane Helene, and that paired up with
Right.
the port strikes all up and down the East Coast as well as the Gulf of Mexico.
Yep.
It's gonna be a very bumpy next few months, if not maybe even a year, given the damage and destruction and whatnot. But we'll touch on that a little bit later.
Yeah, sure. Sorry to get ahead of us.
No. Of course, like I mean, there's definitely a lot to cover. It's been a couple weeks, but going into the debate, I thought all Walz really has to do is defend the policy platform of Kamala Harris, his running mate and whatnot. And I was hoping he'd be a bit more, I guess, on the offense when it came to attacking Vance and attacking Trump, which he did. He did definitely lay down some really significant punches here and there, and he didn't really let him get away with a lot either. Um,
Wait, you don't think Walls let Vance get away with a lot?
for the most part, I mean, of course,
Really?
there was the I mean, there was the
I don't know.
moderation that you know they were both they were both definitely they had a time constraint. They were both given a lot of room to talk. That's for sure. A lot of time, and I don't know. I think it wasn't as explosive as I thought it would be. It did.
Yeah,
It's like it's
it was disappointing in that respect.
right, but like it's what we've come to expect in the day and age of Trump. That's the only reason why the anticipation for it to be a bit more fiery and a bit less civil, because it was quite civil, almost like disgustingly so sometimes. It's because of Trump, because he's brought this bombacity to the political zeitgeist, so that way, like, and because of that, debates are expected to be a bit more entertaining. But the consensus is that this was not a very entertaining debate. It was a nice debate. It
I thought it was
civil.
boring.
Yeah, I mean, civility is actually kind of boring.
Yeah, well,
It's the sad reality of the current political climate, unfortunately. But
mhm.
you know, I thought that Vance came away looking a lot better than I expected him to. Um, so it really is a toss up. You can go either way. But the fact that Vance lied very often is not going to sit well with people who pay remotely attention to politics. But he was able to mask that in a sense of, I guess, professionalism in a way, and
That's it.
civility. He came off looking surprisingly normal, which is what he really needed, honestly. So this is definitely going to help him a lot, and you can see by the post-debate polls, favorability versus unfavorability. Waltz was Waltz got a boost of 23 points in terms of favorability, and Vance got a boost of 19 points. So this was, I mean, this was good for both of them. it wasn't very satisfying when it came to like haymakers and fireworks and whatnot. But they both needed what they did what they needed to do. I thought Walz was a little nervous, but he said before that he's not really a debater. But even with that, he didn't stumble too much, like at all. He held his own and was able to stay on point and actually got some really good messages through, and able to counter the Republican narrative, the Trump Vance narrative on certain topics, especially immigration, the economy, abortion, and of course the probably the best moment of the night was Waltz basically handing Vance a layup. Did Trump lose 2020? And
Right.
Vance couldn't even fucking answer it.
Right.
It's so easy.
But it came at the end of the night.
Right.
It came at the very end of the night. And
Yeah.
a lot of people only watched those first 15, 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So I have a very different reaction for you. Not, 180 difference.
Right.
But this was an example of a professionally trained. Hold on a second.
Mm-hmm.
You guys suck.
Bark, bark.
Okay, so let me start that over for a second. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quite different take on the debate than you for a variety of reasons, but let me summarize my analysis with I saw a professionally trained public rhetorician outpunch a folksy teacher trying to act like a professionally trained public rhetorician.
Sure.
And the harder thing to do in public discourse is make a good argument for a bad argument. And the disappointing thing to do in public discourse is to make a bad argument for a good argument. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you have the facts and the truth on your side, you should win the argument. But by way of manipulation, some might call sophistry, you would probably say just straight up lies, and you wouldn't be wrong. Vance was exposed, but I'm actually here to tell you, for the voters that matter, for the voters that have the most superficial understanding of American politics, they still think it's debatable whether or not Trump won in 2020. They don't know. They think, I heard something about harvesting ballots or whatnot.
Yeah.
They think January 6th was just something that will never happen again. It was this freak occurrence, and he said peacefully. He didn't say go and tear down the Capitol. But regardless, like, the professionalism of J.D. Vance gives him the win for me in terms of just if it were a debating competition at a high school or college or whatever, I would have had to give the win to J.D. Vance because he was so much better at delivering his messages. Now, Walz was overcoached, as a lot of people have said. But the alternative to being overcoached isn't not being coached at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's being coached the right amount. And more importantly, in the right way.
Of course.
Now, the problem with his personality in this context is he's a teacher and a coach, but when you're debating someone, you're not a coach, you're a player. And what that coach needed to bring out in Walz was the old linebacker back from his playing days, not the nice coach that everybody loves to play hard for on Friday Night Lights in Minnesota.
Yeah.
They needed to bring back the player in him, not the coach. And they didn't. They tried to make him into an A-list debater, and lock horns with J.D. Vance on his terms. See, it's all about the footing.
Yeah.
It's all about the premise. It's all, if you can control the rhetorical premise, then you can control the entire discourse.
That's it.
And that's what I think J.D. Vance was willing to do, is he made things that aren't debatable seem debatable.
That was
He breathed new life into a lot of those lies. That, yeah, they're lies. But I got to tell you, the Democrats aren't doing well enough with defeating those lies. And
Yeah.
what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much in full agree with you. In full agreement with you. Hey James, thanks for tuning in. It's good to see you as well. Yeah, he definitely. That was like the biggest thing that tilted the overall discussion in Vance's favor, was the fact that he basically debated on his terms on things that are basically not even debatable, and Walz did not really have the skills necessary to take back that the control of the rhetoric overall during
Right.
the debate, and because of that, most of the time Waltz was on the counterattack. And
Right.
I mean, it's not a bad place to be if you're good at delivering him. Which, I mean, like for the most part, Walz was good at countering what Vance was saying. But
Right.
when you're not having control over the overall substance of the debate and the topics and whatnot, it becomes a little lopsided, and people pick up on that. So, and yeah, I think Walz did fine as well, James. It was not a blowout, which would have been, it would have been bad for the campaign.
No, but I think Vance won by a touchdown. I think he won by more than a field goal. I think he was a clear winner. I mean, I just think that in terms
Right.
of rhetorical performance, it is a performance, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Like politics is a competition, whether you like it or not. We talk about those are huge themes in our show.
Yeah, but
And so we got to grade. I got to call it for what it was, and Walz did not perform to his ability. He could have. That's the
Right.
frustrating part. Is
That's-
he did
yeah.
not do as well as we know he could have.
That's
with the
right.
right prep.
That's exactly it. Another good metaphor would be like Vance had the ball longer or scored more yards.
Yeah,
He
outpossessed him.
Yeah, basically, and that's that's actually a really good way of looking at it. But I mean, to continue with the football metaphors, Vance had some really bad plays too. It's like there's the moment where he was going on and on about immigrants and whatnot. And of course, Springfield came up, and CBS, good for them for doing this, brought up the fact that the Haitian immigrants
Yeah.
in Springfield are all here legally. They're not illegal immigrants. They went through the
Right.
legal process. I mean, it doesn't matter what Vance thinks. It doesn't matter what his base thinks. It doesn't matter if they like the process or not. But they went through the process, and they're legally. And then Vance went on to throw a fit. It was like, well, we agree that you guys weren't supposed to fact check me. And I thought that was truly one of the most hilarious moments of the night. But yeah, I think Walz is really good on abortion and nailing Vance to that, basically holding his feet to the fire. And another thing was when it came to the subject of healthcare, Vance kept on saying that Trump saved Obamacare and that he believed in saving it, and it's only here because it was only salvaged because of Trump, and that's not even remotely close to true. I have no idea why
Trump tried to kill it. Yeah.
Yeah, you said it more. He said it multiple times. It's like, have you not been paying attention at all? He's like, since Trump even came onto the scene, his intention was to gut Obamacare and get rid of it and whatnot. And John McCain is the one that is the single person that ended up saving it. Like, Trump had no replacement for it, and he still doesn't. Like that's where the infamous clip from the last debate from his
Right.
most recent
Have concepts of a plan.
concept. Yeah. So
It's like,
it's
dude,
like
you've been around for 8 years. What are you doing?
yeah. How can you like so that I thought that was a really bad look for Vance. So um and come to think of it, there weren't too many moments where I think Vance really nailed Walz on anything. He just had control of the discussion for the majority of the time, and I think that's really all he needed to do to have the advantage. I don't think he
Well,
really
the
had.
first cliche rule of the vice presidency is do no harm. Everyone says that. So, fine. Walz didn't do any harm. We both agree that this will not result in a huge change in the polls. We'll know for sure in the next few days.
Yeah.
But what your expectation is from someone associated with the game of football is that they are either going to lay a hit or get hit.
Yeah.
And I didn't see Walz get laid out, but I saw him get chipped in the shoulder a few times. And he got a few shots in there, especially at the end, like you're talking about. But
Yeah.
because that came at the very end, I just don't think that this is going to have the kind of impact that, say, the Cheney-Edwards debate of 2004 had on that election.
Right.
Because that arguably sealed the deal for W.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. This is the only vice presidential debate that we're getting, and
Right, it's always the way it is.
yeah, and from what I understand, the Harris team has accepted I believe it's another CNN debate closer to the end of the month, whereas Trump hasn't. So if that comes to fruition and that goes through, we could have a situation where Harris just basically has like a town hall or debates an empty podium, which wouldn't look good for Trump, honestly. Because everybody's saying how there's you're still muted. Everybody's saying how like there's not going to be a debate after this, but I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, so he hasn't. I didn't know that. I thought he had made it known that he was going to debate her at least once more.
Nah, from what I understand, I don't think I think he came out and said again that he's not interested in doing another one. And there's another like some sort of event as well where both candidates were invited, and um, it's some sort of like special event. It's not exactly a debate.
The Al Smith dinner,
Maybe
the night before. It's supposed to be the night before the election. It's called the Al Smith dinner. They all wear these really nice tuxes and stuff.
I'm not. Maybe
in New York.
It's
the Catholics in New York.
Yeah, something like that. I think like the Trump team declined on going, and so it'd just be Harris and Walz. I'll have to check up on that again. Yeah, James says, yeah, that's it was the final debate of this election. Vance couldn't lead a dog out of a kennel. Sometimes you can allow someone to trip themselves up, and I don't think Walz is going to get into such childish BS. But definitely not a blowout.
No, not a blowout.
Yeah, not a blowout. But yeah.
What's scary is that if Trump wins, Vance could easily become president because Trump is old as shit.
That's the most concerning
That's
thing
what's
to
scary.
me.
The guy's my age. He's 40 years old.
Right.
And he's I mean, it's too bad that Walz didn't call him weird.
Yeah.
Because he is weird. He's got this like amazing story coming from white trash Kentucky and Ohio to go to Yale Law. And then he gets into, of course, like venture capital and whatever, not real law. And before, sells his story to Hollywood, gets famous off of that, and runs for and becomes a senator.
Walz could have been a lot more forward and pressing on Vance's overall record and his just inauthenticity.
Project 2025.
Yeah, that as well. Yeah,
He should have hammered that. He should have hammered that all over the place.
I did really appreciate when Waltz brought up the fact that Project 2025 is going to have basically a nationwide registry when it comes to pregnancies, and basically the government keeps track of women's wombs.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah,
It's absolutely disgusting.
yeah,
Yeah, we've talked about it before, but if the Republican Party would just let go of abortion, they would get so much more of what they want.
right.
but, but they're so stuck on that issue, and now they've got it.
Yeah,
Now they,
no,
you
of
know,
course.
now they've got it. And
Yeah,
it's going to haunt them for 20, 30, 40 years.
yeah. Not to mention, you have Trump coming out recently, and uh, I mean, basically shaming them without like actually like using. Well, I mean, you could definitely see it as shaming, but basically shaming women that no longer trust him to you know be for, I guess, women's rights or whatever, because he's trying to say, oh, abortion, it's settled, it's how it's supposed to be, it's down to the states, women, you don't have to worry about this anymore, this is no longer an issue, we're not thinking about abortion anymore. And even Vance in the debate was like, well, I just don't understand why women just don't trust us. I want women to trust our party, and what it's like, are you guys out of your fucking minds? there's no
Yeah.
there's no putting the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
This is a done
It's over.
deal.
Yeah, you've completely betrayed the trust of American women
Big
who
time.
believe that this is their right.
Of course.
And that's the whole argument.
Mhm.
That's the whole argument. You bring this up with conservatives. They don't think it's a right.
Yeah.
They don't think it's a right.
No, of course.
I mean, it's like trying to talk to a first grader that barely knows how to read.
yeah.
Trying to talk to them about Shakespeare. It's
Yeah.
like they don't understand. They can't. It's impossible, no matter how smart they are, right?
Uh-huh.
Maybe 1 in 200 million first graders could actually start to read Shakespeare and know what the hell it meant. But that's effectively what conservatives are
Yeah.
in terms of understanding this as a human right.
Yeah, all of them have a 4th or 5th grade reading level.
They also don't understand how complex the female body is, and how Planned Parenthood and all of this reproductive rights, healthcare issues, is just specific stuff that women need, and men
Basic necessities.
cannot appreciate.
Yeah.
And you have to go read about it to figure out the shit that they have to deal with, and the vulnerability they ensue when they do become pregnant.
Yeah, like
So-
when do men ever have to figure out what birth control to take, or ever like budgeting for tampons and,
Right.
and razors and what have you? You know, it's it's completely lost on. I mean, Republicans as a whole. I mean, men in general who don't even like pay like any second mind to not only women's rights, but what women have to deal with that men just don't. You know,
Right.
and so
I think instead of framing it as a right, it's like that whole healthcare thing we finally gotten over the hill, right? Is healthcare a right or a privilege? Obviously, it's a fucking right.
Exactly.
It's also just ignore the moral arguments for a second. Healthcare is good business for the economy.
Yeah.
You want a healthy workforce. It costs money to take care of people who are sick and they're not contributing anything to the economy. So healthcare
Yeah.
is a good thing for everybody.
No kidding.
And they don't frame it like that.
You can look at it like the sunk cost fallacy. It's like you're already chipping away at, your workforce and their healthcare needs and whatnot. But oh no, there's like a flu or a cold that's going through your area, and it's like it's not going away anytime soon. But it's like, oh well, we already spend our money in our company budget on these other things. Why start doing it for healthcare now? And slowly but surely you lose more and more of your workforce or whatever, and like there's less and less people. It's just like it's you got to start somewhere. There's no like there you need to be able to adapt to change, and not to mention if other companies have it figured out, if other countries have it figured out, like this is the old tired argument. It's like there's no reason why we can't. There's no reason why we can't adapt. You know.
There is a certain kind of entitlement that exists in this country that does not exist in others, where men are conditioned to think that they know what's best for women.
Yeah.
I
No
mean,
kidding.
it's like the age of mansplaining and whatever. It's all kind of come to a head, and a lot of men don't like it.
Yeah.
And I think this abortion issue, the men that vote according to abortion, man, fuck you. You
Yeah.
know,
Not,
like if
I
that's your
mean,
issue, like if you're a gun nut and you're paranoid, you don't trust the federal government. I respect that so much more than I do some guy who says, "Oh well, it's the baby, it's murder."
yeah. I mean, not to mention, like, if you're a conservative, if you're a Republican, and you've just been tired of hearing about, you know, women's choice, like just freedom of choice if you're a woman, abortion, reproductive rights. If you're tired of hearing that, you should be vehemently opposed to what the Supreme Court did, Trump's Supreme Court, and the Republican effort to ban abortion nationwide, because that's like top priority issue for a lot of the electorate now. Like on the Democratic side, it's just going to be like weaponized more than it ever has been before, because it's a major issue. Like Tim Walz even brought up a lot of examples during the debate, having to cross state lines just to get care, doctors that aren't able to operate on, or do like a proper procedure to save the life of a mother because an abortion would need to be done to save their life because the fetus is no longer viable. It's it's a scary place right now in America, and this was created by Trump and the Republicans and the Heritage
Yeah,
Foundation that
yeah.
you know changed the makeup of the Supreme Court with fanatics and
No, it's sure. It's Handmaid's Tale. Do
yeah.
you watch that show, or have you watched that show?
I've been meaning to for a while, but I
Oh,
do
gotta get it, dude.
yeah,
At least watch the first. At least watch the first 3 seasons, and then I don't even know if it's still going.
right,
But I kind of gave up on it after season 5 or so.
right.
But it's legitimately the masculine entitlement telling women what to do with their bodies, and it's the ultimate
Of course.
narcissism, really. It's like just another manifestation of that inauthentic, narcissistic social entitlement that I talk about in my essays.
Yeah.
And it all started with the wasp. In case you're wondering where it came from my people.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly.
So, speaking of abortion, do you know the 10 states that have abortion on the ballot this November?
There's a handful for sure.
It's Arizona, Colorado, Florida,
North
Maryland,
Carolina.
Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New York, and South Dakota. So Nevada, that'll help her, but it's only 6 points.
Right.
I wish it were on Texas. Oh man, I don't think Texas does ballot initiatives.
I could have sworn that it was on the
Um,
ballot in North Carolina as well. But I think it was just
no.
they I think Georgia actually just uh, the Supreme Court basically overturned the ban that was in place in Georgia. So Georgia's Supreme Court, that is, because
Right.
like the ban was brought forth in an unconstitutional way. But we'll see if that goes anywhere from there. But basically, there the restrictive abortion ban that was in place in Georgia is no longer there. But yeah, these states where abortion access is on the ballot is ultimately going to help turn out quite a bit. Um, I'm really optimistic about Arizona. I think that may flip blue
Blue.
when it comes down to it. Just bit too many factors showing that it may go our way, the way for the Democrats and whatnot.
Most recent Arizona poll was Insider Advantage that ended on the 30th, and that had Trump +1. But then you had, a local poll that was only 500 likely voters that had Harris +2, ended a day prior, and Emerson had him at +4. I mean, these polls are all over the place. Like, the
Yeah,
polls are a big part of our show,
of
but
course.
there's just like, unless you know for sure what polls to throw out. Like, I used to love Emerson. Like,
Mhm.
Emerson was so reliable. Now I feel like Morning Consult is more reliable.
Mhm.
I used to think the New York Times was reliable. I don't think the New York Times is very reliable anymore.
Yeah, and not to mention there are still those bunk Republican polls that are
Yeah,
out
like
there
Red
that are,
Eagle politics.
excuse me. Yeah, and that tends to weigh down the overall average. It's not very encouraging, but there's a reason for that. It's just bunk polls designed to bring down the average, even though they're not exactly. I mean, they're biased. They're just biased polls, as we've established before. But yeah.
Strategy is that when doing polling analysis, when the
Mhm.
popular vote doesn't matter, look at the state polls, and they don't come out as frequently, so yada yada yada. It's more complicated. Whereas with the left, you just say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna win," just like it's just all ego, like boosting up. We're gonna win, the whole time, and they don't even. It's so funny. They don't even care that they're not gonna win the popular vote. Like, there's no way that they're gonna win the popular vote, and they just don't care.
Right.
They don't see that as a sign that they shouldn't be in power. They don't
Yeah.
see that as like there are questions around the electoral college and its value. I mean, Jesus Christ, like that's their strategy now. It's the only way they can win.
Right. Yeah. It's it's sad, and they'll do whatever it takes. Like, there's already an issue when it comes to uh alternative elector slates in different
Yeah,
states that you know it very well may be just total and complete chaos on election day, because there will literally be like fights within a couple
yeah,
states or so
yeah,
over the basically the certification and the finalization of the vote totals and the tallies and like
yeah. I hope the
the
cops are
election
on high
slates and whatnot.
alert.
No, of course it's gonna be absolutely insane. That's why we need to win big, like by a big enough margin to where the challenges ultimately don't matter.
Um, well, we can move on from the VP debate. I mean, we could react to. I feel like everyone's already seen the highlights, and
Hmm.
it's like I don't really have any analysis to react to. I think everyone's kind of covered it. It doesn't really matter that much.
Right.
Walz didn't maybe look like someone who could take over for Kamala, but that's fine with me.
Right.
I don't really care. It's
Hmm.
not like it's going to matter anymore. So we can move on to other variables that might affect this election more
Right.
concretely, which are the Hurricane Helene, which I know
Hmm.
you want to talk about,
Oh yeah.
and then the Israel just picking fights with everybody now. They just love war over there in Israel. That Star of David, man, it might as well be a fucking bomb.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ. They can't
Yeah.
get it might as well be a Scud fucking missile
Hmm.
with the just lust that this nation government seems
Hmm.
to have for war.
Yeah.
They just love to go to war.
Right. Yeah. We have 40,000 U.S. troops stationed in the region right now, basically on standby, and Israel is basically just ready to pull the trigger on an invasion of Lebanon. I wouldn't be surprised if they begin it on October 7th. Because I guess there might just be something poetic to that, you know, maybe in their eyes. But it's absolutely disgusting. They just want to do to Lebanon and the West Bank as well what they've been doing to Gaza for the past year. Um, just indiscriminate bombings that have been killing hundreds of civilians in Lebanon, which are still continuing, and not to mention the pager bombing, the walkie-talkie bombings,
Yeah.
like all the devices that they just like by remote detonated and didn't care where they detonated, which killed countless people, injured like 3,000. They don't give a fuck who's in the way. They don't care about mitigation of like this like civilian harm and shit. They don't give a fuck. And then of course you had Iran the other day rain down. I think it was 180
Yeah.
missiles in
Yeah.
mostly empty airfield, empty space and whatnot, which Iran has done before. Like when Trump assassinated was it
Qasem Soleimani,
I think that was like the
journalist.
Iranian. No. The Iranian
Baghdadi?
general. No, it was one of the top generals of Iran. I forget exactly what his name was. I think Soleimani was the journalist that Saudi
Okay.
Arabia chopped up into pieces. But when that happened,
So Iran. Go ahead.
oh
You
no!
finish up.
When that happened, Iran was like obviously like super pissed, and so everybody was on the edge. It was like right like around New Year's 2020. We thought we were all going to go to war, and then Iran launches strikes at like an empty airfield, and that was that. Like it de-escalated, and nothing else came of that. They basically did the same thing, and this was in retaliation for
Why do Israel and Iran have beef with each other? They're so far away.
Well, that's a good question.
So, I mean, they have to fly over Iraq and Jordan to attack each other.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I mean, Iran's the biggest state sponsor of terrorism in the world and whatnot, even though that's actually the U.S.
Yeah.
And I guess it's mostly, I guess, just control of the region, and Iran's like borderline a superpower. Like they are a thriving country in the Middle East, so long as they're not like being crippled by U.S. sanctions. They're it goes back far. A big reason why
Right.
is because we basically assassinated the democratically elected leader in the 50s, and we installed the Shah.
Right.
And,
Shah of
and
Iran, yeah.
they were a secular country. Like it was Persia, and it
Right.
was actually like a pretty like kind of Western country. And then the Shah was installed. And eventually, there's the Islamic Revolution of '79. Like the Arab Spring, I believe, was the actual term for it. And since then, it's been a Shia Muslim nationalist state, and because it's supposed to just because we want control over it again. We want dominion over the country because we know it's rich with resources and minerals, oil, and it's just imperialism. I think is what it comes down to. They're seen as the biggest threat in the Middle East, and Israel's basically our foothold in the Middle East, and that's why there's just been instability this whole time, But Israel's scared.
Well, I think it's really selfish of this region of the world to just continue to kill each other
right.
throughout generations. I was talking with some Jewish people at a wedding recently, and you got to be careful talking about this kind of stuff at a wedding. But
Right.
he had the mindfulness to let me know that he was Jewish up front.
Uh huh.
So I was like, well, I don't know as much about it as you, I'm sure, but I will say I hope it stops someday. I hope we get peace someday. And he said that, well, I was raised to understand that it will never end.
Yeah, that's a big, 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 big reason
And then I'm
why.
like, so you think that your revenge, your spiritual, religious revenge, is more important than global peace?
Right.
That is narcissism.
It's psychopathic.
That is not just selfishness. That
Yeah.
is narcissism.
Yeah, there's psychopathic narcissism without a doubt. My God, and that really does ring true. It really does come down to brainwashing. I was literally talking about this with my girlfriend recently because she was asking about like why is this happening between Iran and Israel and whatnot. Why is Israel carrying out what they're doing in Lebanon right now? Not to mention um, the issue of, I mean, Gaza as a whole, and yeah, a lot. I mean, a lot of it really just because comes down to fucking brainwashing. A lot of Israeli citizens are brought up to believe that the, their state is special and
Right.
Israel can do no wrong,
Yep.
and it's just always it's always been like this. It's always going to be like this.
But then they got the ultimate get out of jail free card by calling anybody who challenges them an anti-Semite.
Yeah, yeah, like
They've
you're
got this whole minority victimhood complex that has worked wonders for them in terms of political marketing. I mean,
yeah.
it was the first question that Walz got, and he didn't know what to do with it.
Right. It's everything. Everything is anti-Semitic. You criticize the Israeli state, you're
I
anti-Semitic.
tell you what's not anti-Semitic:
Mm-hmm.
calling Nazi Netanyahu
Mm-hmm.
Nazi Netanyahu, because that
Right.
motherfucker is legitimately acting like a Nazi right now.
Yeah.
He's legitimately acting like, I mean, with the genocide in Gaza
They all
and
are.
now going for a land grab in Lebanon.
Yeah.
I mean, when's it gonna end, dude?
Yeah.
Like, when's it gonna end?
Did you see
And
that the
the answer is it won't end until he's either dead or in jail.
yeah, like he has to keep the war going, otherwise
Right.
he knows that he will be thrown in jail because the Israeli people don't want him. He wants to change the constitution via the Supreme Court, so he basically can establish himself as a dictator. And the Israeli people are like, "Fuck you, we don't want that." But like keeping this war going is the only leverage he has from being like held accountable for any reason.
Yeah, well, no matter who succeeds him, until there is retribution or some sort of trial or some sort of public acknowledgement that Israel has committed genocide,
Mhm.
then I don't think I'll ever respect the nation of Israel again.
Yeah,
Like, and I
it's
won't
like
be, and I won't apologize for that. Like, I don't care who's Jewish in the room. Like, you back
yeah,
Netanyahu and his genocide, fuck you.
yeah,
I don't care. Call me an
like
anti-Semite.
like
I'm married
period.
to a Jew. Kiss my ass.
Yes, it's no kidding. Let's see how well that works for Kamala Harris. Hopefully, if she wins. Um, but yeah, like
Wouldn't it be
I.
great to get like APAC out of the equation?
My
If we could
God,
just kill
please.
APAC and kill the NRA, can you imagine how much better this country would be?
God, I can't.
And
I can't imagine. It'd be a fucking utopia. I imagine. Like Jesus Christ.
I don't know
Yeah.
if it would solve all of our problems, but it would solve a lot of them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because I woke up in the morning to the news the other day that Iran was striking Israel with missiles, and I was just like, oh fuck, Iran's directly attacking Israel right now. This is kind of stressful as fuck. And so I mentioned it to my girlfriend because this was actually yesterday when the strike happened and whatnot, and I mean, the history of the region right now, it doesn't even really have to do, well, at least with Israel. I mean, sure, establishing a a U.S.-backed state in the region to have a foothold for the Middle East and whatnot, and like give the Jews like a homeland and whatnot, even though it's just a settler colonial apartheid ethno-nationalist fascist state, and basically always has been. It's just gotten worse. But I explained basically like Israel wants to force the surrounding countries into becoming greater Israel. Because they, along with the evangelicals that support Israel, and the the inherent settler colonial ambitions of Zionism, which I mean, which is separate from Judaism. Israel is ran by Zionists, not you know.
Yes, Zionism
Yeah,
and
it's
Judaism
separate.
are not the same things.
Yeah.
Zionism might as well be called Jewish terrorism at this point. You might as well call Zionism terrorism at this point.
Yeah. I mean, like, just listen to Jewish Voice for Peace. They're the real. Like, you should be listening to the people that are calling for peace. Like, you shouldn't be committing acts of terror and settler colonial land grabs in the name of Judaism. That's fucking filthy. That's vile and disgusting. But yeah, the Zionists and the evangelicals that back Israel because the Bible, this and that, they believe that cleansing the quote unquote Holy Land of non-desirables, aka Arabs, non-Jews,
Right.
will start the rapture. Because if all of God's chosen people are there and no one else, I guess the second coming, it happens or something like that. So like
Yeah.
the apocalypse begins basically. Like Jesus
Right.
Christ comes back, and
Well, if you poll
you know,
evangelicals, something like 80% of them
They actually
expect
believe
to
it.
see the end of the world in their lifetime.
yeah, it's
No, these are
batshit
very
insane.
fear-driven. These are very fear-driven people. The Bible beaters, they're
Of
very
course.
scared. They're very
Yeah.
set in their ways. That's people say, "Oh, someone's set in their ways." It's like, yeah, that's because they're a fear-driven person.
Yeah, if you're driven by fear, you just dig a deeper hole in which to dig fear out of. If like that's your primary like driving motivation is just fear. I mean, not so much motivation as I guess influence. You're not in a rational state of mind at all. You're not able to
Right.
like make consciously sound decisions whatsoever if you're just constantly afraid, and that's damaging not only to like your mental state, but your psychological well-being is just all out of whack. You're not making rational decisions if you're constantly afraid, and that's why a lot of these people turn to religion. They cling to it like it's an addiction. They can't live without it.
Yes,
And like they only listen to
it's a good word.
emotional arguments, the stuff that makes them feel all like warm and fuzzy inside. Like oh, we're in.
Did you watch?
Like,
I think you covered that episode where I talked about Frank Schaeffer's term of certainty addicts. They need the answers. Remember, we watched. Remember that guy, Indie Thinker,
Yep.
who's basically just a Christian propaganda artist.
Yeah.
And, I was telling. He was like trying to diagnose this philosophy, this alternative to Christianity, and he was just could not deal with the idea of I don't know. I don't know.
I remember.
Yeah, he just couldn't. Yeah.
No, that's literally
he couldn't
it.
get there. He couldn't get there with just accepting like it's impossible to know what happens after you die. It's, like little things like that.
Shit
couldn't get there.
That shit still just rubs me the wrong way to this day. It's like,
and socially, what it does is it encourages you without even realizing it to surround yourself with other people like that.
Yep.
And then according to the
In-group
psychological norms of groupthink, those views become more firmly held and more extreme.
Yeah, you get enough people to believe absurdities, and you can get them to commit atrocities. It's like it's all comes down to like if you believe that if you cleanse enough of the quote unquote wrong people from your mass of dirt that I guess you've historically occupied, then magic is going to happen, and the sky's going to split open, and some guy's going to come down and take you to heaven or some shit. Like it's insane. Like you mentioned before, the certainty addicts and whatnot. The fact that these people are not even willing to accept the possibility that they might have it wrong, that they
It's terrifying.
right,
It's terrifying to them.
yeah, that can easily like evolve into, I mean, obviously religious fanaticism, but just evil. Like you can make people racist. It's about power and control, subjugation, dehumanization, bloodlust, for crying out loud. You don't see your fellow human beings as
Right.
people anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
They might as well be rabid dogs like that you need to put down,
Or insects.
and you don't because you don't feel guilty. That way you don't feel guilty if you look at them that way.
No, of course.
It is amazing how
It's that, yeah.
xenophobic though the country still is. I mean, that is
Yeah.
just this. So Israel, immigration, and I would say I think those are the two big ones. Really, those are really what bum me out about the Democratic Party right now. I think they would push for Medicare for all or something better if they knew how to do it, but I think that there's a lot of disagreement about what that system should look like, and how to, I don't know the inner workings. It's incredibly complicated.
Well, yeah.
How the money flows in and out of medicine is incredibly complicated.
Yeah, like even right now in our country, we really don't we don't, we don't look at the Arab populations and whatnot, the true victims of this war, for lack of a better term, in the Middle East, in Gaza, in Lebanon now. We just shrug it off, honestly. Thank you so much for your input, James. Really appreciate it. Yeah, life is our heaven. There is no heaven. This is our heaven. What happens after you die? Your family misses you dearly until they die. We don't look at, take for example when Iran struck Israel. Apparently that it's just unthinkable. Like, oh my God, how can this be happening? Like,
Really?
they're like, I think Israel even tweeted like these rockets that are flying into, these are meant to kill people. Like they don't care. These are intended to hit and kill people. It's just like, oh really? So all of a sudden you have an issue with airstrikes and missiles being targeting civilian populations. Wow, glad to see you guys are finally coming around on this. It's yeah, it's blatant hypocrisy. Anyone who even pays even a modicum attention can see like there are just people that you aren't supposed to or like publicly consider as equals. I don't get it. I literally I'm unable to make sense of it whatsoever. Like a crying, dying family just grieving it from Gaza it causes me an equal amount of pain as seeing the kind of suffering as like an Israeli family. There's zero fucking difference in the world to me, and the fact that like this is like a big division among the most fanatic and
I got
insane
news for
people
you, man.
among us. It's like
I got news for you, man. If you study social psychology, you realize that even you have biases according to race, religion, creed, color. Everybody does. Like people, I've been called a racist before, or saying something racist, and I was like, well, if you do your homework, you'll learn that we're all a little bit racist.
Right.
All of us. But what you're saying is, there's different degrees, right?
No,
And this
obviously,
is
yeah. No, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
this is what you're talking about. How
Yeah.
you're talking about how does someone become that militarized? And I
Hmm.
think it's a gradual process. I don't think you're born that way. I think you grow up in with certain subcultures in America. The Confederate flag
No,
is the
of
easiest
course.
symbol to see it coming.
Yeah,
But
it's just especially bad. It's especially heinous when it comes to Israeli citizens because they're taught from a young
yes,
age.
yes,
Lots of um, Israeli citizens that have been interviewed that no longer subscribe to that kind of dehumanizing mindset and whatnot have explained, like, yeah, we're taught this from a young age, or
right.
ex IDF members and whatnot. Like,
And
we're
it's
just taught
not
that it doesn't even
unique. It's
matter.
not unique to
Of
like
course.
the Germans and the Russians used to have a huge rivalry that goes back hundreds to thousands of years or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's right.
But that was the reason why Hitler invaded the Soviet Union. Why do people always say, why didn't he just stop? He said, because that was always the goal. That was always the goal, was to go to Moscow and take Moscow and
Yeah.
then rule over the continent. But the point is that these rivalries existed all over the world in various forms. It's just that most of them are gone now. Most of
Yeah.
them have been subjugated in the name of free enterprise,
Yeah, basically,
and
it subside. It's been
that's
subsided and like
was a
replaced
good
with.
thing for a while. It
Yeah,
was a good thing for a while.
right. Yeah, it's either been just completely subsided or replaced with some other type of competition. It's like there's a reason why we're not at war with China. Like, they're the biggest trading bloc that we have, other than the EU. It's like, yeah, like, we modernize, we move on past like petty squabbles and shit, but like some countries still haven't fucking gotten over that imperialist mindset, like that sort of like brazen attitude of subjugation, of power and control, like hunger for more like territory, power, and
Hmm.
influence and control and shit. Like, look at Russia and their invasion of Ukraine, for example. Like, that's a great example. Like, in this day and age, who would have fucking thought? And it's still going on. It's fucking it's insane to think about. Like, for any amount of time, for real.
How old were you when 9/11 happened?
6.
So you remember it.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's the generational divide. I think if you were 4 years or younger
Hmm.
on 9/11, then you were part of a different generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because those are your
Right.
earliest those are your earliest memories, maybe even five. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, like
I
9/11, like having been to New York before before the
mhm.
9/11, and like being familiar with that city, growing up in Boston, and then seeing it happen, and being a senior in high school when it happened.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I remember what it was like before 9/11, and the military state of the Cold War was resurrected
Hmm.
by 9/11.
Yeah.
Is really what happened. Is the military state was resurrected in different forms in various countries, not just the United States, but that terrorist attack fucked everything up in
Yeah.
terms of the world trusting each other.
Yeah. I think that's like that's actually a really really interesting thing to think about, because I think that's also why, I mean, among countless other things, like regarding the '90s, people hold so much like nostalgia and value to the '90s in general, because if you think about it, like, the Cold War is over. There's no lingering red menace like hovering over the psyche of the American public. And then that just all changed when Bush won and then 9/11 happened. So it's just like everything fucking changed. Yeah, and it's also like a really interesting generational divide as well, because I'm right on the cusp of being millennial Gen Z. Like, if I was born just like a year or two later, I'd be considered Gen
Yeah,
Z technically. And at that point, like, if I was born just a couple of years later, my memories probably would I probably wouldn't even have any significant memory of 9/11 happening or understanding its significance. Because of course I'm 6, I don't really like necessarily fully understand it, but I know that it was significant, and that
But
was
I
enough to
think
me.
you saw the look on your parents' faces that something very like it was probably like the Kennedy assassination,
Hmm.
or Pearl Harbor before that.
Yeah.
It's like where were you when?
Hmm.
And
Or being at school
that.
and seeing the reaction of others as
But
well.
I was
Yeah.
thinking I went down my wife was traveling and I just went down a few rabbit holes and one of them was a 9/11 rabbit hole just
Hmm.
because I still to this day see the reverberations of the effect of that day on how the world does business with each other
Yeah.
and how the world interacts with each other and how the rest of the world treats Americans. And I
Yeah.
do remember on that, I think I took a couple of trips, but there was one trip that I took to New York when I was a kid, and I swear to God, because we flew there and flew back from Boston, we took the shuttle,
Hmm.
and I swear to God, I did have the thought that, because I don't know if we were sitting in first class or whatever, it was a small plane. I was like, it'd be pretty easy to overtake this plane and fly it into one of those towers.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I had that thought. I swear to you. I mean, I can do that. You know me. I can like get into like how people
Right.
think, and
No,
it's
of
like
course.
if my goal is to take down those towers and make sure they come down, the best way to do it would be with either C4 explosive, but it's tough to get that past all that security on the ground. So, and they tried that and failed in '93,
Yeah.
and
Right.
then but yeah, when I was a kid, I'll never forget going to New York and having that thought, and then it fucking happened.
Yeah.
And I knew
It's
instantly.
crazy.
I knew instantly it was terrorism too. Once before the second plane came in, I
Yeah.
knew it was terrorism. You can't
Right.
miss that fucking building, and
Right.
because
Yeah.
also the size of the explosion too. You can see the size of the fire was fucking enormous.
No,
It's
of
like
course.
that was definitely a jetliner.
Yeah.
Um,
The
but
mind the mind is a fascinating thing. It's just like wow, like something really significant could happen here at this place in this way. Yeah, I totally resonate with that.
and maybe I went down that rabbit hole to kind of reconnect with terrorism because it's just going on in so many places right now.
No
I
kidding.
mean, this genocide in Israel, Gaza, is
Hmm.
just state-sponsored terrorism. It's nothing
Literally.
more than that. It's religious violence, so it's maybe a little bit different. But I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah.
religious political violence. It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah, like
And
without any like question or second thought whatsoever, what's happened in Lebanon the past couple weeks is literally Israeli terrorism.
yeah,
Like you can't just detonate a bunch of like remote explosives that are like used as pagers and walkie-talkies or whatnot without that. Like it's terrorization with political motive. Like you're just killing a whole bunch of people for terroristic reasons. Like you're a terrorist, you committed terrorism. That's a terrorist act. But because we fund them and we supply them with arms and whatnot, and they're a U.S. ally, it doesn't count for whatever fucking reason. Yeah, the hypocrisy is just appalling.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like I said, they get that get out of jail free card with the anti-Semitism bullshit. I'm
yeah,
so fucking sick of hearing it. I'm so sick of hearing
yeah.
it.
It's become stale at this point. It's like you're like it doesn't work anymore.
Well, that's what I'm hopeful about. I'm wondering if Israel and immigration aren't the two issues that America is just kind of tired of.
yeah.
That we're just kind of like the whole propaganda machine that was
Hmm.
convincing Americans that immigrants are ruining the country.
Yeah,
I think kind of came to a hilt with this Springfield, Ohio story and the Haitians turning
yeah,
out to be like model citizens. And it might have been a watershed moment for xenophobia in America. Although I say that, and last night they brought up the immigration bill again and how
yeah,
they're going to pass it just the way it was. So we'll see if she wins, then we'll see what they pass.
yeah.
But I'm still not comfortable with this election. I have not called it. Bill Maher, I know, called it. and said that
Fuck Bill
Kamala was
Maher.
going to win. I know, fuck him.
Oh, he said
And
Kamala was gonna win. I thought he said Trump was
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
win.
yeah. No, he said Kamala was going to win about a week ago, I want to say.
Oh, okay. Well, I think
And
before that he said Trump was gonna win, but I mean, good fucking like. I mean, his word doesn't mean shit, but
it's such a travesty because that's a really important show. Somebody else should be hosting that.
no, of course.
Somebody else should be hosting that. Like you're HBO for Christ's
Yeah,
sake. Like,
John Oliver. John Oliver has the better HBO show by a fucking a continent and a half.
I know, but his viewership isn't as big. I don't think. I don't think he gets as many viewers because he
I
hasn't been around as long. He has a better and Friday night's actually a good time slot for that kind of show.
mm-hmm. I mean, you might be right. I mean his uh clips on the last week tonight YouTube are somewhat substantial. They always get millions of views, so it counts for something. And it's by far and away just the better show. I find it quite a valuable source for learning about various topics myself. Yeah, fuck Bill Maher.
Yeah, dude, he's such a pretentious asshole. It's like, dude, you're not even close to as smart as Jon Stewart. Give me a break. Get the fuck out of
Yeah,
here.
I'm so glad Jon Stewart's back. Like I still
Yeah, it's great.
tune into his clips too. He's great.
Yeah, he's not perfect, but
Mhm.
he's close.
Oh yeah.
So what else you want to talk about here? The Hurricane Helene. I mean, took out Asheville. I don't know if you ever heard of Asheville, North Carolina, but it's
I have
a
now.
fabulous town. Yeah, well, it was a fabulous town,
Yeah.
and full of a lot of really great people.
Mhm.
And now sounds like it's history. Sounds like it's going to be like a few years to rebuild that whole town.
No kidding. I mean, there are a lot of communities, like all up and down Appalachia, that have just seen historic flooding. Like everything's underwater. Like I think, like Asheville alone got or like areas around Asheville got like 2 feet of rain. Just it completely submerged. Entire areas completely submerged, and it's just unthinkable because when you think about hurricanes and evacuation warnings and whatnot, you don't really consider um, communities more inland to
Inland,
be
right?
as affected. Because I think Asheville is like
It's way inland. It's on
yeah,
western. It's in western North Carolina.
yeah, like 300 something miles from the nearest coast. So it's like, what reason would they have to evacuate? I mean, they only got like a day's notice. Like, hey, it is you're about to get dumped on. I think it was like 40 trillion gallons of water over the Appalachian Mountains. From West Virginia down to
Yeah, dude,
Florida.
their roads are destroyed.
Yeah.
Their like homes are underwater.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna take forever just to clean it up, and then you gotta rebuild.
Mhm.
And so, who's gonna pay for all that? They probably don't have that kind of insurance, right? In that part of the country, why would you have hurricane insurance?
No, of course, and that's
You'd have homeowners insurance. I wonder if it covers that though.
yeah. I mean down there. I mean I assume like because flooding is a lot more often out there. Especially if you're closer to the Missouri Mississippi River and whatnot. But those hills, yeah, it's just like unthinkable, honestly. Like this amount of rain, and it's like the deadliest storm since Katrina, like the second deadliest hurricane in like 55 years or something like that. It's absolutely insane to think about, and apparently, because I think I sent you an article from NPR. We could probably actually pull that up if you're able to. But
Yeah, hold on.
this hurricane might have very, very, very significant, substantial, I would say, global economic effects. Because I have seen quite a few things suggesting that this little town in North Carolina being wiped out by Hurricane Helene may probably like completely shut down the semiconductor industry globally, because the article itself might actually explain it here. Yeah, it could massively disrupt the tech industry. Because yeah, so nestled in the Appalachian Mountains, a community of spruce pine, 2,000 people. High purity quartz. So they mine quartz out of this community, and because it got 2 feet of rain, the whole community was basically washed the fuck out. Semiconductors, which are the brains of every computer chip and whatnot, solar panels, computers, for cars as well.
Wow.
It needs pure quartz. And where do you get quartz in the world? This mine. Nowhere else. Nowhere else
Well,
like
whoever owns it must be filthy rich.
yeah. No kidding. Ultra high quality quartz, by as far and away the largest amount and the highest quality. So, semiconductors are essential for
Yeah,
the majority of
electronics.
our electronics and our technology and whatnot. And so silicon wafers become silicon chips, where one single atom being in the wrong place could derail production. Pursuing artificial substitutes, but so far they can't satisfy the world's
Yeah,
demand.
nothing's doing.
The course is Tech Set owned, or notes from a report. The equipment in the town and in this little industry right here is worth $2.12 billion.
Right.
Yeah, so this
24 inches of range. Jesus Christ.
yeah, spruce pine got absolutely insane. So if there's no recovering these mines, if there's no revamping this industry, I think I think they said, yeah, because it says right here that if a disruption went on for more than a few weeks, it could pose a serious problem for the production. Um, but yeah,
And China is the major producer of solar panels and relies heavily on imports of high quality
yep,
quartz from spruce pine.
from North
Wow.
Carolina. That's right. So this could be really, really, really bad.
Yeah, interesting.
We're going. I mean, it's only been like a few days, believe it or fucking not, since the most pronounced impacts have subsided. I guess you could say that the storm moved on and whatnot, dissipated. But if this industry, if this quartz industry is not salvageable, we're going to have to pay a shitload more for semiconductors to put in our electronics and shit. It's going. I mean, this is a global market. It's going to
Right.
it's going to disrupt the entire global supply, because I think this quartz gets shipped off to India and then they
Yeah.
construct it into the semiconductors that way with other necessary materials to make them function properly, etc., etc. Um, so I found that to be a pretty concerning tidbit regarding the impact of Hurricane Helene.
Yeah,
Uh,
man, that's good digging by you because I would not have found that. But NPR, God bless them, they're on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you scroll Twitter long enough, you'll find a couple people that have these little nuggets, and it's just like, huh,
I know, I
that
just
seems like
can't scroll Twitter, dude.
I mean,
Twitter is
yeah,
just
it
awful.
sucks. Twitter's the
I have to
worst. I
I
know.
have to like start a brand new account and just like be very disciplined about who I follow. And
Yeah,
just like follow only like 20 accounts or something.
no, yeah, because For You's just not really reliable. It shows you the worst of the worst, and your following tab only shows like the most recent tweets from like the last couple minutes. You have to scroll and scroll and scroll to get to any older tweets. It doesn't show you like the most notable tweets, just retweets and like the newest tweets from people you actually follow and shit. So it's a shit fucking website, especially now.
Someone ought to come around and try it again. Try and make it a third. Someone will. I have confidence someone will. There's a demand for that kind of social media where it's like texting and it's like
Yeah.
we had a thing called the hot board or something, or the hot wall or something, and it was just a big fucking. Every high school had it, where we just everyone post their shit up. Hey, I lost my wallet or
Right.
lost my keys or
I mean,
party at
Twitter used
you
to
know
be that in its infancy, and what it
right.
grew to be, and no more. I mean, I guess you could
Yeah.
say Threads is sort of kind of like early
Yeah, it's
Twitter.
not catching on though. I think it's got to
No,
be
it's
its
not.
own thing. I
No, of
don't think it should
course.
be. It shouldn't be a derivative of another established social media thing. It should be.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe it should be like start
Yeah.
with just celebrities,
No, of
and
course.
then I don't know, have it be like approved or something. But they tried that. There's just so many the operating costs I can only imagine of how to like make sure and how to be a custodian for that kind of network that's actually quality. It's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Probably $1 billion just to really have a chance at that idea working.
No, of course. I think Mark Cuban floated the idea of buying Twitter from Elon Musk recently, and I found that to be a little amusing. There's no
Yeah, you could
good.
probably get a good deal on it.
Yeah, there's no good billionaires, but Mark Cuban seems to be one of the better billionaires.
No,
I guess you
Mark
could say.
Cuban. I was thinking about this. Mark Cuban, Richard Branson, and there's a third that I can't think of right now. But there are a lot of the. It's funny when you talk about the big money. You know who the most
Mhm.
philanthropic people are, is the heirs. A lot of people,
Yeah.
the people. It's not the people that made the money. It's actually the people that inherited the money that give a lot of it away and start nonprofits and come up with creative ways to kind of do something with all that money.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
Um,
I was going to mention this earlier. There was another
yeah,
thing too. Maybe James can fill us in on this a little bit more. But he mentioned it earlier because I guess he lives in Georgia. There was a major biolab fire. He says he's still in a mandatory stay indoors and avoid the gas clouds
shit,
from it. Gigantic. I don't know if you've seen videos of it, but just gigantic plumes of smoke, like area
yeah, it's
wide,
huge.
insane, and it's like I'm not exactly sure if it was because of the hurricane or if there was a meltdown or what, but um, yeah,
There you go.
look at that shit. Like it looks orange cloud, like orange smoke clouds. Like what the fuck is that? You know? Yeah,
Not
fucking
good, man. Not good for
yeah.
the environment. Not
Causing
good for
chlorine
anybody.
smell. No, no kidding. It's like
The insurance company's upset about it. Everybody's upset about it.
fire triggers unstoppable. Wow. Yeah, no. Still gassing off. Yeah. Apparently it's still going. And it's like, sure, there's a stay indoors order and shit, but people still have to go to work. So, like, according to capitalism, you can't be harmed if you're working. You know, only stay indoors if you don't have to like resort to your job in order to keep your living going and shit. Like, what is
Right.
George? Is George just gonna pay these people to stay home until the fire goes away? It's like, no, that's not how it fucking works. So these people are going to get sick. They're going to inhale these fumes and whatnot. It, all of a sudden you have a whole community of thousands of people developing tumors or getting cancer in a few years and shit because they need to make a living rather than stay indoors and shit. Wonderful country we got here. Sprinkler went off over water reactive material. Is that what caused the fire?
Radioactive material.
Uh,
Oh man.
reactive.
Reactive. Okay.
Over water reactive material. I'm sure if we pull up like maybe an article or something, it'll probably give us like the origins of the fire or whatnot.
It's fine,
but
dude. Like, let's just. I don't want to keep bringing this down just too much longer.
for
It's
sure,
it's a
we don't
good
have
story.
to.
It's a good story, but I mean, we're not really a news show. We're more of like a
No.
political analysis show. So.
Yeah,
And we're at
Yeah.
120 now. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking, what else did you want to discuss? Did you have anything? I mean, I think we got some good content up there to work with tonight.
yeah,
The VP debate, I think, is just a letdown.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of we keep wanting a big moment, and like I think you have and Kalinsky has
hmm
talked about these external variables, right? The October surprise. Well, I think we're getting multiple October surprises.
multiple October surprises.
And this unfortunate reality of the party that's in power gets blamed, fair or unfair, gets blamed for disruptions in the status quo.
Yeah, I mean the Biden administration did actually pressure because we mentioned the striking longshoremen, the unions,
Right.
all the ports go on strike. They even said like, hey, you need to get a deal done because this is yet another thing that may very well cause a big economic slowdown because if those ports aren't bringing in goods and whatnot, the they're just not getting into the country. They're not moving. We're going to have to be waiting on a whole lot of things, and this is coming up on the holiday season as well. So there are already signs that a recession is pretty much well on its way. We might not actually get the soft landing, quote unquote, after all. According to I forget what his name was, but
Aren't recessions inevitable?
no, of course, in a capitalist system, yeah.
Yeah, they're inevitable.
Yeah.
No matter when the next one happens.
Phosphorus trichloride is what it was. James says, but yeah, no.
Thank you, James.
Solidarity to the striking longshoremen. Hopefully, they get the deal they need. Because think about it,
My grandfather was a Long Island longshoreman.
oh no way. Yeah,
Yeah.
like they're essential to the economy. They deserve a lot more than what they're getting. I mean, it's pretty inarguable. I mean, when you're literally like responsible for global trade and bringing stuff into the country, from each of these ports, you deserve a hell of a lot more than what you're making. You deserve all like top tier benefits and everything.
Right.
So, yeah. But
Right on, man.
yeah,
Well,
pretty much
I
it
think,
for me.
yeah, that's it
Yeah.
for me too. Thank you guys for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we are reminding you always that you don't get change in America by asking nicely.
We'll see you
So
guys next
stop
time.
asking nicely
Yeah,
and start getting pissed. All
absolutely.
right, see you guys later. Have a nice night.
Have a good night.